Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar, and before we jump into today's topic, I do just want to ask that if you have been enjoying this podcast, if you have benefited from any of the discussions we've had, then I would greatly appreciate it if you left the podcast a rating and a review on iTunes, on Spotify, or wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then please subscribe, give this video a like, and leave a comment. I would love to engage with you. Today, let's talk about something that seems to be showing up a lot within our society today, especially here in the United States. And that is the nature of masculinity and femininity. Because I guess people are calling it bro culture, tech bro. I'm actually forgetting what it is about or how they are naming some of this stuff. But I've heard so many conversations about especially toxic masculinity and this whole thing about empathy being a sin and transgender issues and people just trying to be seen and valued for the identities that they hold. And it seems a lot of this, from my perspective, comes from very archaic views of what is masculine and what is feminine. So before we get started here, I do just want to pose the question: when you think of someone who is masculine, when you think of masculinity, what typically comes to mind? And on the flip side, when you think of someone who is feminine, or you think of femininity, what typically comes to mind? Now, I was raised with this understanding that to be masculine meant that you played sports, you rolled around in the mud, you got dirty, you wrestled with your father, you constantly competed, you were always trying to test and see where you stood within the realm of what it is to be a man. How strong you were, how fast you were, how loud you were, who had the better parents, who had the stronger parents. I remember growing up constantly wanting to arm wrestle my dad just to see how strong I was compared to, in my view, the ideal the ideal model of what it was to be a man. And to be masculine, that also meant that you did not show what was typically classified as feminine traits, or you would be called girly. And I am thinking of not showing emotions, of being soft, of wanting to talk in a deeper, more emotional way, something that was more intimate. Heaven forbid you should ever have a desire for anything that was the color pink or some other like light pastel color that was not a boyish kind of color, or the kind of toys that you played with. You should play with action figures, not with dolls. You should want to build things. You should want to construct. You should want to play with cars and war and have sword fights and gun fights and all of this kind of stuff that was stereotypical of what it was to be a boy, of what it was to be a man. If you did not show these stereotypical traits and behaviors, then you weren't man enough. There was something that was too feminine about you, something that was too just maybe even gay That was something I heard a lot growing up. If anyone had something that was a hot pink in their school binder or something like that, and you were a boy, then that clearly was an indicator that you were gay. And that may have changed from, oh gosh, 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago. Yet, we always had these models of what was acceptable for girls, what was acceptable for boys. And being a man, I am going to try and represent the expectations of women and of girls, but I know I'm going to get some things wrong here. And so if you have any perspective on this, I would love to hear from you. Just leave a comment if this is on YouTube, or you can send me an email at questions.btcpod@gmail.com. If we look at the other end of this spectrum, at what it is to be feminine, then you are going to be someone who wants to have more of the pinks and the soft pastels. You want to wear makeup. You want to be feminine. You want to be, I just use the word that we're talking about. That's poor podcasting and poor discussion tactics there. But you want to be nurturing. You want to be comforting. You're more about creating within the confines of a household. Your imagination goes towards being a mother, being a cook, being a wife. You are not going to be doing any of the rough and tumble things that most boys would do. It's going to be more of being demure, being quiet even. Oh, that was kind of a big one I've heard from many women, was the nature of how they have to be quiet. But boys are allowed to be loud. And I think of, I've already shared this on a story I've already shared this on a previous episode, but just that funny story of this girl who was going out shopping with her mom, and she had an Anakin Skywalker lightsaber, and her mom's like, but don't you want these nice little pink toys over here? And girl's like, no, I want to be a Jedi. And the mom's still pushing, and the girl eventually says, Mom, you're turning me to the dark side. Because this girl knew what she wanted. She wanted to be the hero. She wanted to be a Jedi. She didn't want to be the more passive, the more kind of working in the background kind of individual, as we often hear in American society, that behind every strong man, or how's that quote go? Behind every man is like a strong woman. But the woman is always behind. She's not getting the attention. The man is. And within the Christian system, there's also the, oh gosh, I am really testing myself spur of the moment here. Wow, why I cannot think of what it's called. Complementarianism. That, oh my goodness. Within the Christian tradition, there's more of a pull towards complementarianism, that there are aspects of being masculine and aspects of being feminine that complement each other, and they are necessary for a relationship, for a marriage to work. But these are also following what is expected from Copper Age writings and teachings. And we're talking about that it is the man's job, the masculine portrayal, to be the breadwinner, to go outside, to work, And it is the feminine portrayal to stay at home, to child rear, to maybe even manage the house. And yet, I take a look at my own marriage. And a great example of this, I was joking around with my dad just last night because he and my stepmom are looking to downsize. And they have some things that they are just wanting to get rid of because they just do not have the space for it in their home, because they're looking to sell their home up here. And my partner Libby joins my dad in his garage to look at some of the tools that are available. And I go out there and I'm just joking around that, you know what, I'm just the pack mule. Libby's going to choose the things that she wants and then I'll just carry them out to the car. And I just made a joke of, Libby, the son that my dad wished I was. And of course, Libby and my dad laughed at that. And then my dad grabs this set of drill bits and hands them to Libby and says, "Here, can you hand this to the son that I got?" And we've always joked around about that Libby's the one who wants the power tools. She's the one who does the woodworking, and there are certain things that she does need my help with because physically I am just a stronger person. But she's the one with the creativity. She's the one with the technical know-how. And you know what? I let her do that stuff. She loves doing that. It's not something for me. I'm the one who's wanting to write. I'm the one who's, let's face it, I'm the one taking care of Odin. I'm the one effectively taking care of our child. I'm meeting his needs a lot of the time. I'm the one who has very deep and intimate conversations with people. I am the one in this relationship who ends up showing a lot of these feminine traits. And Libby shows a lot of stereotypical masculine traits. And that works for us. It really does. And it's something that I can joke about now, but it is a part of my past where I had to grow up hearing from both my parents that someday I would make a good wife for someone. And those were challenges against me and my identity as a man. And I really struggled with that. For years, I struggled with that. What I'm trying to get to here is maybe we've got the wrong idea of what's masculine and what's feminine. And even when things deviate from what is masculine and what's feminine, we even have some tiers of what is acceptable. Because if you take a look at a woman or a girl who portrays more masculine qualities, they are classified as a tomboy. And for a lot of girls and women, being a tomboy isn't that big of a deal. Almost because it's like American society values more the masculine nature of humanity. And yet, if you have a boy or a man who is empathetic, who is tender, who doesn't want to play rough or even get involved in sports or anything like that, they're not as accepted as a tomboy. In fact, I don't know if there is a term that we will give to boys who do show some of these more stereotypical feminine traits. If there is one, I don't want to take the time to look it up, but I'm guessing if there is one, it's probably not all that flattering. And I know for me, again, this was my experience. I grew up, I was very passive. I did enjoy playing some sports, but I wasn't really that big on competition. And I'm still not that big on competition. I enjoyed like telling these grand stories with my twin brother, and we would role play in the backyard. And yeah, there were fights that we get into, and there would be these grand shows of power, yet it was all for telling a compelling story of taking down something that was inherently evil. But I was also bullied a lot because I was a big kid and I was very passive. I liked having long hair. There was even that time growing up when I felt like I could somehow be the daughter that my mom never had. And that is a whole story in and of itself. In fact, I've probably shared that in a previous episode. Yet, I was a boy who did show some more feminine traits. And I was called gay. I was called a homosexual. I was called a fag. I was called queer. I found more acceptance from my peers who were girls than I ever did from my peers who were boys. Because boys didn't know what to do with me. I didn't want to compete with them. I didn't care about who was stronger, who was faster. I didn't care about, there was even a time where I guess most teenagers go through a time like this, or maybe not even most, but there's definitely those teenagers who they're just thinking about and like keeping track of their sexual conquests. And then it becomes a competition for who can have sex with more women. And I didn't care about any of that. There was something that was so surface level and superficial and even just posturing that I didn't like about any of that. When I think about just the nature of what is masculine and what is feminine, we all carry these aspects because that's what makes us human. I think of Libby and her desire to create, and she loves to do woodworking. And yet she is also one of the most caring and loving individuals that I have ever met. She cares deeply for friends and family. She is not afraid to cry. She is not afraid to express emotion. She wants to be seen. She wants to be appreciated through her looks and through her accomplishments. And yet, she's also the one that had to teach me about different makes and models of cars because I never paid attention to any of that. She would point out some of the more antique vehicles, and she will still look at those and be like, oh, that car is just really cool or beautiful. And I look at it and I'm like, it's a car. Whatever. And she's the one who likes to build things. She likes to make shelves. She likes to make tables. She made the gaming table that we play at when we play Dungeons and Dragons at our friends John and Dan's place. She's the one who knows where the tools are in the garage. If I go out into that territory, I'm lost, and I usually have to ask her where to find things. That's very opposite of what most people would expect from a woman and a man married together. And yet, I do have my masculine strengths. I have my physical nature. I can be very much a protector. Oh man, I can grow facial hair like, ugh. I can grow facial hair like a dwarf, I swear. And I also can appreciate just times of quiet and peace, times of being able to just be with friends, to joke around, to laugh, to check in on how they're doing. I appreciate telling good and compelling stories. I appreciate the beauty around me. I can't tell you how many people just within the last couple of months I have made a compliment to about their nails. There's a lot of women that I have seen that have taken meticulous care of their nails, and they're painted and they just look lovely. Does that mean I want to have those kind of nails? Of course not. But I'm still recognizing that beauty and I'm still appreciating it. That's not something that I really grew up hearing was a good masculine thing to do. And for me, especially when we live in cultures these days that very much want to have things black and white, you're either masculine or you're feminine. And it's not appropriate for one to be showing the traits of the other, especially if we're talking about men showing feminine traits. If you're finding yourself listening to messages where everything is black and white and there is no area for the gray, then there's a good chance that you've siloed yourself a little too much. One of the things that I'm seeing, and this is a big part of, I guess, the presidential climate right now, is men don't admit when they're wrong. I will be one of the first to admit when I am wrong, when I've made a mistake. And yet, I am seeing so many people who make mistakes and then they're just trying to blame others. Because how dare they show weakness as men? No, there is no way that they could have made a mistake. They did everything perfectly. People are just taking things out of context. There just seems to be this nature, especially with masculinity, that you can't show weakness. Because if you're showing weakness, then you're dipping too much into what's feminine. And that's weakness. And if those are messages that you have heard, just as a man, I am so sorry that you have heard those messages. It's not right. It's not good. It's not even fair. In fact, I can even go so far as to say that those messages are just outright hurtful. What I want to encourage you to do is to allow yourself to express your humanity in whatever way feels natural and comfortable to you. It took a lot of time for me to become comfortable with the notion that, you know what, I am a man who just has more of these traits than a lot of men that are just classified as feminine. And you know what? I'm okay with that now. I'm okay with my empathy, with my compassion. I'm okay with this desire to be with others without competing, without there needing to be a clear winner and a clear loser. I am okay in the skin that I'm in. And if you are experiencing any kind of dissonance in your body or in your mind about what you're hearing you should be like and how you actually want to be, then I could probably say with certainty that there are people in your life who are trying to fit you into a mold that just doesn't work for you. And that is okay. It is okay for you to not fit within the mold that these people are trying to fit you into. If you are a woman and there are things that you enjoy doing that are stereotypically masculine, then enjoy them. If you are a man and there are things that you enjoy that are stereotypically feminine, then enjoy that. Don't let anyone tell you, other than yourself, who you're supposed to be. I think of all of these great videos that I used to see back when I was on TikTok, that you would have these really buff and tattooed men who are wearing princess jewelry and having tea parties with their daughters. And there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, I bet that the fathers who did that really connected with their daughters in a way that was unfounded, even just a couple of decades ago. I know that there are some mothers out there who are the ones that introduce their kids to things like archery and shooting guns and maybe even some other kind of masculine activities that I'm not even thinking of. Maybe we're even talking sports. And that's okay. Things do not necessarily need to come from a man for it to be masculine. Because I firmly believe that we house both masculine and feminine qualities within all of us, because that's what makes us human. It is an innate part of our humanity. Allow yourself to be who you are, and don't let anyone else tell you what that's supposed to be. I can tell you that is a miserable existence trying to live up to other people's expectations of your identity. And they have no right to tell you what your identity is. And until next time, live strong for today.